Hello, and welcome to AHTV, Aortic Hope's YouTube channel. I'm Molly Thomas, bringing you the Week in Review. This week's Week in Review is sponsored by Cook Medical and Edwards Life Sciences. We appreciate them so much for their support and sponsorship. All right, let's get started. If you'd like to read more about Cook Medical and Edwards Life Sciences, check out our homepage on our website. All right, let's get started. It's Medical Monday, and this month we are talking about myths and misconceptions about aortic disease. This week's Medical Monday is brought to you by Ani, and we are so grateful for our medical students and all that they contribute. Welcome back, everyone, he says. Today we'll be discussing one of the most common myths regarding bicuspid aortic valves. Being told that you have a bicuspid aortic valve, or BAV, can understandably raise a lot of questions. And one of the most common is, if my valve is abnormal, does that mean I'll eventually need surgery? The short answer is no. A bicuspid aortic valve can sometimes cause significant problems, but many people with BAV never need their valve replaced. Understanding what a bicuspid valve is and what doctors are actually watching for can help make the diagnosis much less intimidating. So, what is a bicuspid aortic valve? The aortic valve sits between the heart and the aorta. Its job is to open when the heart pumps and close afterward to keep blood from flowing backward. Most people are born with an aortic valve that has 3 leaflets or cusps. Called a tricuspid aortic valve. In people with a bicuspid aortic valve, the valve has just 2 leaflets instead of 3. BAV is one of the most common congenital heart conditions. Some people are born with it and go their entire lives without significant symptoms. Here we have a diagram of a bicuspid aortic valve. The top one is a normal tricuspid aortic valve, and the one down below is the bicuspid aortic valve. So, why can a bicuspid valve cause problems? It can function normally for many years. However, because of its structure, it's different than the standard anatomy. It has a higher risk of developing problems over time. And the two most common are aortic stenosis and aortic regurgitation. BAV is also associated with changes in the ascending aorta, including enlargement or aneurysm formation. This is why people with BAV often need periodic imaging of both the valve and the aorta. So, does the bicuspid valve have to be replaced? Not necessarily. If the valve's working well and you don't have significant symptoms or evidence of severe valve disease, treatment may simply involve regular monitoring. The most common thing for people with BAV is knowing what is happening with the valve and the aorta over time. Your doctor may use echocardiograms to follow how well the valve is opening and closing and check the size of the aorta. The goal is to identify changes early and operate only if intervention is necessary. When might that surgery be necessary? It may eventually be recommended if the valve develops severe stenosis or regurgitation, especially when it's symptomatic or begins to affect the heart's function. In some patients, surgery may also be recommended when the ascending aorta becomes significantly enlarged. In those situations, the valve and aorta can sometimes be addressed during the same operation. Importantly to note, the decision to operate is based on the condition of the valve, the size and growth of the aorta, symptoms, and the overall health of the heart, rather than whether the valve is bicuspid or not. The bottom line, a bicuspid aortic valve does not automatically need repair or replacement. Some people with BAV eventually do develop significant valve disease or aortic enlargement and do require surgery, while others have a normally functioning valve for decades and never need for operation. Regular follow-up with your healthcare team can help ensure that treatment is recommended when it's actually needed. All right, Ani, that's all for this one, folks. Keep thinking aorta, he says. Thank you so much, Ani. And moving on, we have Topic Tuesday, and keeping with the myths and misconceptions of aortic disease, we have Anita Zahiri. She's our newest med student, and we are so happy to have her, and we welcome her to the team. All right, thank you, Anita. And let's see what she has to say. Good morning, Aortic Hope community. Today we will continue with our monthly theme of tackling common myths and misconceptions about aortic disease. The myth today is your heart is removed from your body when you undergo heart surgery. All right, let's learn about this little myth. All right, where does this come from? Well, when people think about getting heart surgery, they may imagine a dramatic scene where the surgeon opens the chest, completely removes the heart from the body, performs surgery on the heart, and then sews the repaired heart back in place. This sounds quite daunting from a patient perspective, but this is a myth. So, what actually happens during heart surgery? In most heart surgeries, the heart stays securely inside your chest cavity the entire time. So, what actually happens if the heart isn't being removed? Well, before surgery, the patient is placed under general anesthesia, meaning they're completely asleep and do not feel the procedure. During the operation, the surgeon typically makes an incision down the middle of the chest through the breastbone. It's called a sternotomy. In order to access the heart. The heart itself stays in the chest, but many types of heart surgery requires the heart to be temporarily stopped so that the surgeon can safely perform the operation. A heart-lung machine, also called cardiopulmonary bypass, is used to temporarily perform the functions of the heart and lungs during the procedure. This machine pumps blood, adds oxygen, removes carbon dioxide, and keeps blood flowing to the rest of the body while the real heart is stopped. Think of this as temporarily putting the heart and lungs on pause while the surgical team works. Once the operation is complete, blood flow to the heart is restored and the heart begins beating again. It's important to note that not every heart surgery requires the heart to be stopped or a heart-lung machine to be used. Some procedures can be performed when the heart is still beating. The approach depends on the specific surgery and the patient's condition. There are also certain specialized procedures in which the heart may be partially lifted or repositioned within the chest to give the surgeon better access. However, this is very different from completely removing the heart, which kind of makes me chuckle, actually. Okay, there is an exception, heart transplants. In cases when the heart is severely diseased or cannot be repaired, patients require a transplant to receive a new heart. In these procedures, most of the patient's original heart is taken out of the chest, apart from a small portion of the atria. Then the healthy donor heart is put into the empty space and sewed to leftover parts of the old atria and main blood vessels. Very interesting. Heart transplants, wow. In conclusion, the idea that the heart is routinely removed during surgery may stem from the fact that heart surgery is very complex and involves temporarily taking over some of the heart and lungs' normal functions. However, in reality, the heart generally stays exactly where it belongs, inside the chest. Modern heart surgery relies highly on sophisticated techniques, technology, and a coordinated surgical team to protect the heart and the rest of the body throughout the procedure. So what may sound like a simple question, do they actually take your heart out, actually opens the door to understanding just how remarkable cardiac surgery really is. It's fascinating. And Anita Zahiri, our newest med student from Brown Medical, says that's all for today. Next week, we will be discussing a common myth about aortic dissections. Thank you so much, Anita, for contributing to our Topic Tuesday. All right, this is interesting because Emmanuel Mbaka, the African perfusionist, he's new to our team. He will be contributing to Aortic Hope's weekly, monthly information. And this past week, Karen had a Q&A with Emmanuel Mbaka. It is fascinating to learn what a perfusionist does And you've got to check out this Q&A on AHTV. The link is right here. Let's see, let's read a little bit about Emmanuel. Some of the questions that are going to be asked and answered are, what exactly does a perfusionist do? What role does a perfusionist play during open heart surgery? And what inspired Emmanuel to create the African perfusionist? Why is patient education about open heart surgery so important to him? One thing you'll feel through this conversation with Karen is Emmanuel's genuine love for patients and his passion for making sure they understand what is happening during their surgical journey. And we're so excited to have him with the Aortic Hope team as a medical and social media contributor. He has a very, very successful podcast of his own, The African Perfusionist, on YouTube. Check him out as well there. Otherwise, keep an eye out for Emmanuel and his contributions about being a perfusionist. It's quite interesting. So check it out. We're happy to have you, Emmanuel. All right, this week's Survivor Series, we have Vicky Cray and her husband, William. Vicky suffered an type A aortic dissection December of 2025, so just about a year ago. And she and her husband are on camera she's telling her story with the support of her husband about this journey that she has been taking. And it's a wonderful story. It's so inspiring. We really appreciate you contributing to our Survivor Series, Vicky, and we're happy to have you. Thank you so much, and check it out on AHTV. Now, as we wrap it up for the week, I wanted to show you in our Hope Shops, we have some new swag. So we have some new shirts, and what inspired us to put out some of these shirts are we have had some people jump into the Aortic Hope Facebook page and sell shirts, and they're not legitimate. It could be fully a scam. We try to keep an eye out for them and block them from the page because they're not legitimate. So we decided to put out a few Aortic Hope inspired aortic disease t-shirts. So you've got to check it out. There's some really cool ones. Let's see a little preview here. Here's one. I wear my scar like a crown. It's really cute. It has the Aortic Hope symbol, and it comes in multiple colors and designs. And we have Ask Me About My Aorta with a very fancy picture of the aorta. Or we have another one, Ask Me About My Aorta. Pretty straightforward, really cool. There's a lot of stuff in the Hope Shops. Check it out. And be sure to keep an eye out for any promotions that we may be having. Okay, let's move on to the events page. Upcoming events, we have all the listings of the support groups for caregivers, survivors and caregivers, the Canadian support group, and bereavement. They're all throughout the month, all at different times. Check out the events page on our website. And let's see, today's the 17th of August. Cannot believe it. Wednesday, we have at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Aortic Athletes presents Dr. Sam Sears to talk about aortic disease, mental health, and exercise. Aortic Athletes put on a great interview always, so check that out. It'll be also on our YouTube channel. And again, Sunday, we have Qigong with Kevin Songer. And Monday, Sarah Kuplin will show up for that week's Week in Review. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to Cook Medical and Edwards Life Sciences. We hope you have a really nice week. See you soon. Thank you.